Hello, everybody, and welcome back to another episode about the movies with William Fletcher. As per usual, I am your host, Wailing William Fletcher. I've got Treehouse of Horror names. That's what we said I was going to do last time. And this
Oh.
week, I am joined by a returning guest, blood-curdling Barney Metcalf. Ooh, spooky names.
Actually,
Yeah.
I'm sorry. I'm not actually Barney. I'm an alien pretending to be Barney.
Oh, oh
Ooh.
no.
Ooh.
Ooh.
What
And
clever reference
for
to the film.
we're so clever. And for
Real
this
smart.
this week's episode for Halloween, this is coming out the day before Halloween, so hopefully you go to strangers' houses, knock on their doors, and take sweets, take lollies, take chocolates. That's we
Demand
should be
confection
encouraging
from
this.
strangers, and if they don't give it to you, make sure you must mess them up real good. That's the rule.
Yeah, and that's what we're gonna. Well, one night a year, we encourage children to do the one of the few things we tell them to never do, and that's take candy from strangers. That's what we're gonna do. At least in America. In Australia, we don't. Have you ever had kids come to your house for Halloween candy? Or
No.
lollies, as we call them.
Well, mostly because where I live now is not really it's not organically prime for trick or treating. But even when we used to live in the suburbs, no.
And Harry is not joining us for this. First of all, he's in the middle of like moving house at the moment, so
Oh.
he's kind of very busy with moving house. And also he doesn't like horror films. He's really like put off by them, which I can't. Like I'm not put off by horror films, but like if it's not your thing, it's not your thing. I'm put off by like rom-coms, so I don't actively seek out the rom-com films. Like I think not that I'll turn one away, but I'm not like, oh, I'm not going to be like, oh, a new rom-com's come out, I got to go see that as soon as I can.
Yeah.
Yeah, can get
Let's
in,
go.
lads. It's like, how I feel like there's people who like sort of seek out like, I try and seek out as many films as I can, but I'm apprehensive to some more than to certain types of films more than others. But for this week's episode, we're talking about The Thing.
Very exciting. Very exciting.
Yeah, The Thing. The Thing from Another World, the 1951 film, I believe. That's when it came out. The Thing, the 1982 John Carpenter classic, and the 2011 film called The Thing, which is annoying because it's like, why do you call it the same?
I want to get into that in a bit because
We'll get into that later on, but that really is annoying.
Yeah.
The 2011 prequel, which I for the longest time thought was like a remake or something. I didn't know it was a prequel until I've known it for a few years, but when I first heard about it, I'm like, why'd they do a remake of The Thing? That seems weird.
Well, there's
But
another thing that I want
prequel.
to get into there, but we'll talk about that when we get onto that film.
Yeah. So The Thing from Another World, I watched it yesterday. No, 2 days ago. 2 days ago for the first time. I'd never seen it before. What first time means if I'd never seen it before. But I mean it's just The Thing 1982. Like it's basically the same thing, just made
Well,
30 years.
no, it's not.
Well, some of it. There's sort of bits of it are kind of like there's sort of and it's not exact.
Well,
like it's not
I suppose
direct.
we should talk about the fact that it's based on a book. Who goes there?
Yes, the Who Goes There? Yes, which I've never read, but I am interested in reading because
I did some reading about it earlier to see how similar it is to these films. And basically, the John Carpenter film is probably a more faithful adaptation in some aspects. Well, so in this The Thing from Another World, the two things that it does that is accurate to the book, more people at this research station in Antarctica. There's like 40 of them.
Sorry, did you say 40? Sorry.
Yeah, only like 15 of them get names.
Jesus Christ, that's too many characters. That's way too many characters for this kind of story.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I'm just looking. So
Um,
it was a novella, a 1938 novella. So
yeah, and yeah,
okay,
the other thing that I'd say is a direct thing from the book is
The Thing,
it's
like
this.
the film we're
Oh,
talking about,
don't
The
don't
Thing.
don't don't. I will leave. I will leave this podcast and never come back if you if you pull this shit. It's so in for example in the Carpenter film,
Mm,
it's not that research team that uncovers the spaceship and gets the alien frozen in the ice out of there. But that is the
okay,
case in the book and the 50s one. They're the ones that go out and they find the spaceship, plant
right. So
thermite
like the
bombs.
main, right. So it's not okay, yeah. Because in
Yeah, so
the 1982
it's
film, it's sort of already thought out, and it's
yeah,
whereas in the book,
the Norwegian research team have found it.
yeah, they're the ones who, yeah, okay, yeah, all right.
Um, and then apart from those two elements, I'd say it might as well not be based on that book. And apart from being set in
um,
Antarctica.
yeah, I mean, I would like to read the book because I do enjoy a good horror book. Like I've been reading The Shining, and there's some really quite unnerving bits in The Shining when you read it, that are not present in the film. Um, I would like to read it, but yeah, The Thing from Another World, 1951. I I can't be too harsh on it because it's like it's a film from the 50s with, from my understanding, it was very like quickly made with
Yeah,
not a
that's my
lot of
understanding.
money behind it, and they kind of had to
Pretty
film
much.
it very quickly. It's like how when we covered Little Shop of
Shop
Horrors a
Horrors?
while back.
I was thinking exactly that, yeah.
Yeah, we both sort of were like, we can't be too harsh on it because was a film made in like 3 days with like basically no money. So it's like you sort of take it at that level, and I do appreciate low budget. I can like I'm a bit less harsh on low budget filmmaking because it's like, well, you didn't have a lot to work with, so I can't be like too harsh on it. But there are also examples where it's like you see a low budget film, like The Evil Dead is just the immediate example I'm going to pull to, where they had like no money for The Evil Dead, and then they made a phenomenal, well, phenomenal might be a bit of a strong word, a fantastic film though. Like I love. I mean, we did an Evil Dead episode last year, so you can go listen to that where we talk about the Evil Dead films. But I'm a massive fan of that franchise, and that first film is a very sort of inspirational film, if you ask me, because it's like they made it with barely any money, and it's they achieved so much with it, for the Evil Dead. So I can appreciate low budget filmmaking, because that's sort of the stuff I can make it. It's like, oh, I can make this film, or something like this, to within reason, of course. Um, but yeah, I liked The Thing from Another World. I didn't hate it. I don't see a need for me to revisit it though, to be honest.
Well, it's funny you say that because I had seen this film before, so I rewatched it.
Yeah, yeah. Yeah, and,
Amazing.
I think it's like I definitely think it is worth watching. I don't think it's a bad film or anything. I think there's a lot about it that is. I mean, to talk about The Thing, the titular thing from Another World,
Yeah, that's what I
is
wanted to get into with this film.
yeah, it's not what I sort of, because I'd seen the 82 film first,
Mhm.
because that's the iconic classic.
Indeed.
So The Thing from Another World, he's just sort of he's just like a guy, like he's not
A
like it's a
humanoid
bit of a,
alien.
yeah, like just a slightly taller man with like a bit
It's
of
it's
a funky head.
it's baffling because don't they say at one point that this alien, similar to how humans evolved from like fish and apes, it's like, oh,
Hmm.
he evolved from a carrot. At one point, they refer to it as an intellectual carrot. It's a
Hmm.
vegetable alien.
There's They just
And
don't make
it's
films like
great.
they
There's
used
this
to
whole
anymore.
bit where they start saying, "Oh, how do you fight a vegetable?" and just start naming ways of cooking it.
Yeah. they just don't make films like that anymore, do they? Like, I would be
Oh, I'd love it.
if like I would love it if we just get a film, like one film a year that's just a throwback, and you just get amazing dialogue,
Just
like
nonsense.
yeah, yeah, you just don't they just don't make them like when I watched the 1966 Batman film. I'm like, man, they don't make superhero films like this anymore, and they really should because this is
Wish they
just
did.
amazing. Yeah. I think though. I mean, I don't know. Actually, where do you stand on this film? Because I think it's all right. I don't hate it.
I think it's yeah, fine. I liked it more this second time round. Not much more, I will say.
Mm, mm,
Um, and I just kind of took it as this schlocky bit of 1950s horror. It's very watchable,
mm. Yeah.
uh,
No, it's not. If you watch it, it's. I don't think it's a bad film at all. I just
but it's also quite
don't see
unremarkable.
myself. Yeah, I don't see myself ever wanting to revisit it. Like,
There are like
because
little bits that for example, that vegetable stuff that I found quite amusing. And there's a bit where they're planning to trap the thing
mm,
outside, but then it walks into kind of the room with all the bunks and stuff in it, and they just set fire
mm,
to the room.
yeah.
Literally, just everything is on fire.
I think if you're a fan of The Thing, the 1982 film, I do think this is worth watching. I think there's or if
Worth watching so you can
you're a fan of the
tell the
like
key.
I yeah, it's like it's that's not a bad film, but it's I mean I don't really have much to say on it if I'm being like completely
I
honest.
can't get the notes on
I give it a very low 7 out of 10, and there are films that I've also given 7 out of 10, but they're like I'd watch that again, like something like what's a film I've given a 7 out of 10 to? Night of the Living Dead, for example, I've got down as a 7. And I like that film, and I do see myself revisiting it and watching it again. Whereas this is a 7, but it's a very unremarkable 7 on the border between
Yeah.
a 7 and a 6.
Well, I used to have it as a 6, and I've bumped it up to a very low, like a 6.5. And
Yeah.
as I was rewatching it, I was just thinking, I don't think I would ever watch this film again if I wasn't doing this podcast.
But we move on to the star of the show, as
Yes,
it were. The film that
the meat and
is
veg of
like
this
the
episode.
reason we're doing this episode for The Thing from 1982, the John Carpenter classic.
I mean, I
Um,
was very excited to do this episode because, and I'm laying my
yes.
cards out pretty early. This is one of my favorite films.
Okay, I will not lay out my cards then yet. Build some suspense,
I
like
thought,
The Thing
yeah,
does.
thing. No, I thought
Gonna,
I'd
yeah,
run through the wall on fire like a alien who's been
yeah,
exposed. Say
yeah.
I love this
Uh,
film. I think it is excellent.
mm. What is
I think
your Because for me, my history with this film is I'd only seen it the one time beforehand, and that would have been 5, possibly close to 6 years ago since I've seen it. I've seen it one time, and I remember I went to the orthodontist. I had an orthodontic appointment that day. And I think when I got home, I watched The Thing. So that
naturally.
would have been, yeah, 5, 6 years ago. So I've seen it once, and I rewatched it earlier today. I found the film. I was out. I found it on Blu-ray for like $10, and I'm like, fucking
Okay,
snatching that
pretty
because
good.
I wanted to revisit it because um I did want to revisit and be like, oh, what do I make of this film? However many years later. So I've seen it. This is my second time watching The Thing. So that's
Um,
my history.
I've seen it a fair few times over the years. I think this is maybe like my
Mm.
third, fourth time watching it. Um,
Mm.
I first watched it, yeah, around 6 years ago, something like that. Similar to you.
Mm.
Um,
Yeah.
where in fact it was around. It could possibly be the exact date. Actually, no, it wouldn't be. I think I first watched it on the 29th of October because I was the 3 days going up to Halloween, well, up to and
Oh,
including.
okay.
I just watched a bunch of horror films that were classics that I'd not seen before. So
Mm.
On the 30th, I did the Evil Dead trilogy. The 31st, I did Night of the Living Dead, and then that
Mm,
trilogy. And then on the
yeah.
28th, I just picked three films and watched them, and it was this, An American Werewolf in London, and I think the
Mm.
other one was Reanimator.
Oh, that's an interesting trio because they're all
Well,
different
I
films in
wanted to go
terms of
for
plot. Because
different classics of horror in
yeah,
terms of films
but all three of those films,
and different
tons of
types of
like great
aliens,
practical effects.
werewolves, and zombies. Oh yeah, and all the great effects in them.
The only thing that I was really familiar with was the defibrillator scene. That's kind of
It's
all I
quite a
remember
famous one.
knowing. It is quite a famous bit. I don't think I knew, and I don't even think I knew that bit was from The Thing until I remember. I think it was when I started watching The Thing, and he's doing like the defibrillator. There was a brief moment in my
Like,
head
oh,
where I'm
hang
like,
on.
"Wait a second, I've seen this before?" And I'm like, "Oh, so his chest is about to open," and it does. And I was like, "Oh, holy sh!" Like I've had
Oh,
that
it's
before
from
where
this.
I see a scene from a film or a TV show, and then I see the film or the TV show. I'm like, oh, it's this fucking scene. Seen this. It's
This,
like the
this is
surprise
where it came
motherfucker
from.
from Dexter. It's like
Oh
I've known
yeah,
that meme for like 10
I
years, and I didn't know it
keep
was from
forgetting it.
Dexter. So yeah, I rewatched it earlier today. Um, okay, I've got one mild problem with the film, and that's why the fuck is there a spaceship at the beginning? Because I
Yeah, that's one of two. If actually
don't,
no, that's probably the one thing I'd remove from the film because it annoys
yeah,
me.
I
I
don't,
think because that
yeah,
primes
if
you to expect some sort of alien.
yeah, it's kind of like Predator almost, like I think the opening of Predator,
Oh yeah,
there's a
that's got that as
spaceship
well.
and,
I
like,
don't
you
particularly
don't
like
need a
it there
spaceship.
either.
Yeah, and there's other films where there's just, like, one opening scene where it's like, "Nope, take that out." Like, that doesn't ruin the film, but it doesn't you don't need it. I think if this film opened with a husky running through the snow while Norwegians are trying to
In
fucking gun it
yeah.
down, I'm like, that's one of top 10 greatest openings to any film, if you ask me.
In terms
Like,
of doing what a opening scene needs to achieve, and that is just getting
yeah.
your audience on board immediately, this is about as perfect as it gets.
But yeah, the opening scene is just fantastic. It immediately, well, first of all, the opening credit. I love that they do the opening credits before you see anything. Like you
I
just
always
get all
love
the
it when
credits
films do that.
because you're not distracted. I think films should do that more. It's like I don't need the credits because it would
Over the
distract
film
if
at
it's
this
like,
point.
yeah, directed by John Carpenter. I'm like, fucking get that shit. I'm trying to see what the fuck's
I'm
happening.
trying to watch
And
the dog.
yeah, and I mean that is the way to open a film. I'd have to really think about this, but this might be the greatest opening to any film ever.
It's
Um,
definitely up there for me.
it's top 5, if not number 1. Like, it might be top 3, honestly, like, it's that good.
I'd say it's probably top
Um,
three.
um, it's
So,
it's just
still stuck
great.
into
It
the
just
film. Oh, go on.
yeah, so we open with this dog being chased, trying to shoot at it, and I think the problem with this, right, with the spaceship is because the spaceship having the spaceship at the front does sort of imply, like, okay, I feel like it sort of
It's
primes you to think,
aliens.
okay, something's up with this dog. Like, I don't know why, but in my mind, it sort of primes you to think, like, okay, something's up with this. And I think
But I
that's a
prefer it if you just got that from the way the dog behaves. Speaking of that dog, what a performance!
yeah, that's a really good, like, animal performances. Sometimes you get some really good ones. The dogs in this film, not just that dog, but like all the dogs. Like, we'll get into that scene in a bit, but
Mm.
that scene in the pen is that's something. Um, but I think that yeah, I think the sort of the opening of this film really does get you in, and I think with the Ennio Morricone score,
Oh
which
yeah,
I want to touch on,
the main theme,
uh, which
wonderful.
would
All the music.
yeah, I mean the main theme is oh, sorry, do you hear that? Ding dong. Oh,
Oh
these are
no,
the it's super hands. What are you doing here? Oh, so what we want to do is build a powerful sense of dread, right? The longer
longer
the
than
note, the more
great.
dread. And I mean, That is true
Oh,
though. Like
thanks,
it's just
Superhand. That's really
so.
insightful.
Yeah. All right, he's gone now. Oh, it's gone out. All right.
It's get
Sorry,
a
he just had to say hello for
gargle
five. He
very
just had
low
to.
going phone.
But yeah, there's a simplicity to the score where it's just like a. I mean, I might drop a clip here, but there's just a simple, just like a dum dum.
Boom, boom, boom.
There's a beautiful
It's
simplicity to
creepy.
it.
It's creepy.
It is, yeah, and it's like in terms of music, it's quite unnerving because it's like it creates this dread, and it creates this atmosphere. And I mean, Ennio Morricone is the master. You
I
know,
was gonna
he
say it's
is
laughter.
the best film composer of all time. Like it's like
He's the man.
hard to and you know, and John Carpenter, who often scores his own films. I'm surprised he didn't score his this film. But also I'm kind of glad because I don't think he would have done this. I think Ennio Morricone just brought so much to this film with like that score. Like not to say that it still wouldn't be a great film because I think it still would be, but the score bring like it's one of those things where
Yeah.
it's like the film's still probably good. Like Jaws is still going to be a good film, but without that John Williams score, it's just not going to be as good. Like that's just how important music is. It's like, oh, this just would still be good, but it wouldn't be
Not as
as
good.
good. I want to talk about John Carpenter actually because I've covered him briefly in the past when I covered Halloween. I he's a bit of an interesting filmmaker, I think. Um, because I kind of feel like I don't know, like, is he regarded as because he's made this film, The Thing, and he's made Halloween, but I feel like other than that, he's kind of not really made many like
Uh,
beloved classics.
I don't know. People
Certainly
like
not.
Escape from New York and stuff like that.
But he's. I don't think he's a bad, but he sort of feels like he sort of slots into that sort of Wes Craven type thing, sort of that category of sort of like he's not like a bad filmmaker or anything, but like it's just like he's made like a couple really great films, and then everything else is just like sort of not to that same step. I don't know. It's weird. I don't like. I haven't seen like the full oeuvre of his work. Like, I've not seen everything he's ever
I've
made,
only seen this and Halloween.
but I think I think this film. I mean, there's a lot about this film that I really do like. Um, I think that I mean it's a well. I mean, from every level, I think it's a great film. To be honest, I think we're about to
Yeah.
become very sycophantic about it in a minute. Well, the cast, which we should probably talk about. Um, we've got Kurt Russell, a very young Kurt Russell who
Yeah, it looks like a
is
member of the
he really does. Yeah, he doesn't. I'm more used to like contemporary Kurt Russell, like gray hair and a beard. You know, like Hateful
I think like
Eight, uh, Guardians of the Galaxy 2. Um, what else has he done
Fast and the
recently?
Furious.
Oh yeah, of course. I mean, Tarantino's more recent films like Once Upon a Time in Hollywood, and he
I
did
think
Death Proof. Yeah, he did Death Proof, and he had a bit of a renaissance. Kurt Russell, like he was a big deal in like the '80s, and then he still had work, but like I think the '80s was when he was like a big name, and then he sort of faded
yeah.
away for a bit, and then guys like Tarantino and James Gunn and the like were like, hey, let's we love these Kurt Russell films that we grew up with from the '80s. We should
Let's
put
bring him
him
back.
in, which is good because he's had a bit of a renaissance, and I think he's a very good actor. Kurt Russell
Yeah.
is. I think
Yeah, I
he.
like it.
I don't think though this is like. The performances are not bad. I don't want to say the performances are bad, but like they're not the thing bringing. Well, no, that's not entirely true. Actually,
I think the performances are all very good, but they're not the standout.
no, they're not the standout. but there are a couple scenes where the performances really come to life, and I'm
Yeah,
like,
the kind
okay,
of the
this
tension
works
it
really.
gets. Yeah.
There's a couple scenes where I'm like, okay, these performances are really great, but this isn't a performance movie. Like, this is not. This is a
No.
film that's like, these are good performances that get you through the film and they work well,
But yeah,
but
you're not
there's
coming to
not
the
like,
film to really cut your teeth on some great
yeah,
performances and
yeah,
plot.
this isn't like a character piece where it's like you've got these great characters and you feel and you're like sad when they start dying. It's like they're sort of they're almost props, I guess, to sort of tell the story to a degree, which that feels a bit
That's
reductive, but
it's really what a character is, for sure.
yeah, but no, but I mean like they're not massively developed, but like in the sense of
It's not a
this isn't a
character-driven
character
film.
besides Kurt Russell, we've also got a very young Keith David. Like I've never seen him that young. Like my god, I love Keith David. Like Keith David is just one of those actors where it's like if I see he's in something, I'm like, oh okay, I'm more
It's Keith
interested now.
Hey,
Yeah, and I don't even know why because I think he's just got something about him where it's like I see he's in a film and I'm like, okay, it's gonna be good then. I'm gonna be all right.
he's just very dependable.
Yeah, he's a very dependable actor. He's got a great voice, I'll say. Like he just has that
This
like
is
a
a man who knows how to marry his cousin.
yeah, Keith David. Yeah, I mean this is the youngest I've ever seen him though. Like I'm just used to him
Yeah.
with like graying hair and but I like Keith David a lot. And then none of these other actors I'm particularly like the names are not jumping out at me as like, oh, I recognize that
Wilford
actor. Like
Brimley is a
I
name that I'm familiar with, but I don't think I've seen
Wilford,
it.
yeah, I've heard of Wilford Brimley. I don't know if I've seen him in anything else though.
I'm
I
looking him
definitely
up
know
now.
the name. I'm on his Wikipedia list now, seeing if there's
Oh, hang on, yeah, no,
anything.
I've seen him in The Thing. That's what I've seen him in.
Yeah. Yeah, but there's all these again, it's just like a lot of which that is an interesting thing that the 50s film, there are women.
Well,
There are
there's a woman, isn't there?
yeah, which is like one more woman than this film has. This film has no women in it. Yeah, I mean so they kill the Norwegians
They
uh
take the dog in.
with a they take the dog in. And then there's sort of the first real standout scene for me. Well, we sort of get bits sort of where we meet the characters, and there's that a really. It's not like that bit where the dog goes into someone's like room, and you don't see who
Mhm.
it is. I'm like, it's so simple, but it's so effective. Like I think
It was cool how
because we
fucking
don't know
creepy
anything.
that dog is.
Yeah, it's just like sort of sneaking around. Like it's sort of because it's walking down like a hallway and it sort of stops at the end and sort of like I don't know, just the way it's sort of looking around and moving.
It's
It's like it's
closing the room,
checking,
man. It's like, "Oh,
and it's like it's a beautiful simplicity because we don't know anything really. We don't know what's up with this dog yet, so we just sort of you're just like just gonna go see a person, but we don't see who it is. So which I think is great. I think it's a good it's simple filmmaking, but it's like doesn't mean it's not effective. There's a more films should be simple. Like some films just overcomplicate things. It's like just be a
Mhm.
bit more simple with your film. They sort of they also so then sort of some of the Americans they go to the Norwegian base. They find the sort of remains of
Destruction."
or something. They don't really know what it
Thing.
is. Yeah, a thing. They find it's like a melded shape. There's like two sort of like half faces on it, like sort of melding. They find like it's like organs in it and shit. They find like all this um stuff in it, which I think is good. But then we get to sort of the first real standout scene of the film for me when they put the thing dog in the kennel with the other dogs, and that is uh it's a fucking amazing scene. I think it's not the best scene of the film, but it's really just quite because again, you
Manic.
don't quite know what's happening yet, but you get the reactions of all the other dogs. They're like growling and they're fucking like, you can tell they know something's off with this thing.
I like the dog's there,
And
but
then,
that's not a fucking dog.
yeah, Which, to be fair, dogs really. I don't know. Like I don't know. Like a lot of apparently dogs are just really good at sensing shit. It's like, this
Well,
is a
it's
bit off.
animal instincts.
And I mean, it's a horrific scene to watch. The thing, it's like face like splits open.
Yeah,
And
Richard's
I think this scene, yeah, the dogs sound. I was really distressed watching them. Like the dogs sound really quite like
dogs.
distressed. I was feeling. I was like, oh, this is, and it feels so, and it's so real. It's like, man, they've really captured like, yeah, the stress of these dogs.
These dogs stuff.
Yeah, and
There's
it's really distressing to watch. But it never feels like unnecessary or it just feels like, yeah, these dogs are distressed, and it never crosses the
well,
line.
there
It's
is
like,
that bit
okay,
where
you've
they're
gone
like
on.
spraying purple gunk
Yeah,
on the.
there is a bit where they're just spraying the dog with it, which is like, okay, I don't know if we needed that quite,
Okay.
but but there's the bit where the dog's like trying to like chewing through the fence to like escape. It's
Yeah.
like it really captures that terror. Like it really does create that
Yeah.
terror, and it's got
It's
like
very,
the
very stressful.
things like it's got like the things that like shoot out of it that are like flinging around. Like the sort of, I don't know if I'd say that like tentacles or something, but like there's all this, and I mean this is a good segue to talk about the effects. Like the practical effects
Mm.
have held up
Kind of
phenomenally well, and
things it's known for.
the effects hold up so well. And what's so good about it is they never focus on one design for too long. Like they never focus
Yeah.
on
Every time the
like
thing
you've got like
kind of goes mental, it gets a different kind of creature design, which is really cool.
yeah, you've got like the one where its head like splits open and like eats that guy. There's the one with the upside down head,
Like,
which is that's probably my
spider.
favorite one. Is the upside down head with the spider
I'd,
legs.
I'd,
Like that's
I'd
probably
all play that. That'd be great.
yeah, that'd be. I'd love that. There's the one with like the really well, the one with its chest that just opens and just eats that guy's arms. And then you've got this one that sort of got like, yeah, it's I think this film, and I mean we'll talk about this with the prequel, but there's these effects have aged remarkably well
So they're
compared
about
to
29 years older than the. Um,
1982. So yeah, nearly 30 years older. They've aged remarkably well, and they still look good today. And I mean, we've talked about this before, but that's what happens when you use practical effects. They always look good. Like practical effects pretty much don't age.
but one bit of the practical effects in this film that I don't think quite holds up as well, and it's one relatively small bit.
Hmm.
It's when the bit you mentioned where its head like splits open and like grabs windows, and it's like he's like
Yeah.
flailing around, and it's clearly just a mannequin or something because his legs are bending in really weird ways. That's the one bit that I'd
Mm,
say doesn't particularly hold up that one.
mm,
It definitely it appeals to what I find scary, and I find body snatching stuff. That really
mm.
kind of gets to me.
That's why I find the 1978 Invasion of the Body Snatchers so scary as well, because
Yeah,
it's
that's
just like, oh shit, that's a creepy. But yeah, I mean, this is quite scary, like and I'm not one that gets scared like massively. Like there's stuff that unnerves me, but this is the kind of thing where like if I was in this situation, I'd be like, ah, fuck, what do I do? Like
I'd kill myself.
I'd be like, okay, well, I'm gonna die at some point because what the fuck can I do against this fucking thing? Like it's
Yeah.
this like because
Oh,
it's like every time they think they've killed it, it just comes back later, and it's like, and I do want to mention that like there are stories where it's like, okay, how do we kill this thing? And they don't. I mean, as far as we know, there's no real answer on whether they do kill it or not. Like in that final scene, but it's still quite. I do think because there is sort of a thing of like, well, if they can't kill it, does it still work as a film? And I think this film still does work, even though they keep trying to kill it and they don't quite, and they are not able to quite kill it. It doesn't fit because that is definitely a situation where it's like if they keep trying to defeat this thing and they can't, why should I be invested? Like, why should I care? It's like like but I think
I
this
think
film does a good job
those
of
last 20 minutes when they're resolving to right, this is our last chance. Let's try and kill this thing. Um,
yeah. Yeah,
think by
I
then, like,
I
you
think
you are
yeah.
on board, and I think the very ending, I think it's still fine that it's, not clear because, there's been a lot of
Yeah.
ambiguity in the film up to that point.
Yeah, I mean, we'll talk about the ending a bit, but this is one of the films where an ambiguous ending works because it's like it still gives you a vague answer. Like, but we'll talk about it a bit towards the end of this film because I think we have sort of similar feelings on ambiguous film endings. I mean, I do really love films that are just like people stuck together, like just a group of
Yeah,
characters that are stuck together.
trapped together. I really
Stuff
like
like
that.
Alien, I love. The Hateful Eight, I think, is great.
Yeah. Well,
Um,
a lot of kind of whodunits, sort of like
Whodunits
that.
of that, yeah. And
Then there were none.
I mean, I think this film, yeah, it creates a really claustrophobic atmosphere because you really don't know who is the thing. Like, you really don't understand.
Until, like, it reveals itself, yeah, you've got no idea.
Yeah, and I mean, we're gonna get. I mean, do you want to go through this film like chronologically? Because there is a scene I do really want to talk about.
I don't think we really need to do that. I think we can just kind of generally talk. We've kind of done it so far, but I
Okay,
think we can just kind
yeah.
of hit
Okay,
general
because I
points
want to
of
talk about the blood testing
testing scene.
scene
Yeah, and that's a great scene.
because it's I think it's the best scene in the film and contender for most tense scene in a film. I think there's like I put it up there with the tavern scene in Inglorious Bastards.
Well, the great
Um,
many scenes, bastards.
yeah, a lot like the best of Alfred Hitchcock's work.
The
There's a scene in I don't have you seen the
one
film
episode of
Wreck?
Black Mirror. Oh, the as an REC wreck, not Wreck It
REC,
Ralph.
yeah.
I
Yeah.
don't know what you call it, but yeah, no, I've not seen that.
Okay, well, there's a scene towards the end which I would put in there. I don't want to say what it is because you haven't seen it, but there's a scene towards the end that's
Mhm.
it really works. Yeah, the blood testing scene. It's just, it's like that's
It's
how you
masterclass.
build tension. It's like this is how you create tension. I mean, even like the film Failsafe, like that entire
Oh,
film is just one of the most intense things I've ever experienced because it's just like, oh fucking hell, what's gonna happen? Like that, like just the entirety of Failsafe is just it's one of the most tense films I've ever seen because it's just
especially towards the end, it gets really tense.
towards the end, yeah. And Uncut Gems is also quite tense from my memory. This is yeah, the blood testing scene. It's phenomenally well crafted. From the, I mean, there's the bit where the guy like runs at Kurt Russell's character and he just
The
point
plot
blank shoots
is
him,
putting out people.
and then they're all like tied down to the seats, and it's just like, and because it's all the characters basically minus the one who's been like locked up. So you're like, okay, so there has to be here, like it has to be one of these characters, like
Yeah, at
it
least one
can't not be.
of the thing.
So you're just waiting for that
Well,
moment,
and
and
possibly more.
possibly more, yeah. And then there's that guy who's like, "Oh, what's the point of this?" And he's like arguing against it. And then there's Kurt Russell's like, "Oh, so we're gonna do you last." And then he puts like the hot needle, and it just fucking shrieks. And I'm like, "Fucking hell!" Like because it just plays with your expectations of like, and it's so unexpected too. Like it's a jump scare, but it doesn't feel. It's not like one of those like bullshit jump scares where
Yeah,
there's like rustling
it's
and someone's mate
like
just like
the
grabs them.
tension they've been building over the. Yeah, because it's not just a jump scare. Because it's not like the moment happens and then it's like, oh, gotcha. Because it keeps going as the
Yeah.
which wherever Palmer when yeah,
Mm.
his thing starts going fucking mental.
And it's just so tense because you're just sort of watching there with like it's like knuckle biting because like all like half most of the characters like tied down on this seat with the thing,
Yeah,
and
it's like
like if it touches them it can become them, and it's just like
separately. Talking about separate
yeah, they're
things, maybe it's benefit in case
yeah.
the person is the thing.
Yeah, but they're yeah, like three of the characters, they're all on this one couch, and they're all just like, and you just feel the
Yes,
tension
Gary and
and the
Childs tied up together, and they're just
yeah,
yelling
and
because
they're
this
all
thing.
just they're fucking yelling, and Kurt Russell's like flamethrowers are working, and he's just like trying to get it to work, and it's just like oh fucking make it, like it's such a great scene because it's you feel what it like it really it just really like it's just like horror, like it just really radiates, and you just like fucking get it to work. Ah, like it's just like, and I think I don't like this. Like there's still great horror being made, but there is something about horror made from the 70s and the 80s where it's just like they just were made differently. Then it's like, man, you just
Yeah.
don't get this kind of horror anymore. And that's not to say there isn't good horror still being made, because obviously there is. But this is the kind of scene where it's like nowadays stuff seems more polished, I guess. Because they were filming on film stock, so there is a bit more of like a rawness almost when you
Yeah.
shoot on film stock compared to like on digital now. But yeah, I mean that's a phenomenal scene. Probably my favorite scene in the entire film. Honestly, it's just
Yeah, probably is
fantastic.
mine as well.
It I mean, I feel like at this point I have made it clear that I do love this film. It's a great film. Like I do love this film so much, and I just think everything is so well put together. It's just also it's not
Yeah,
overly long
I
either.
think this is a contender for, one of the objective best films ever made.
As a as a like this is the kind of film I think we've talked about this before, but this is the kind of film where it's like this is just so far beyond what I could imagine
Your
myself
own
making.
abilities that you just start feeling sad.
Yeah. I mean, I'm sure you've gotten that before in the past where it's like,
Oh,
"Oh,
yeah.
this is just too good. I just couldn't make this. This is too good for me."
This is
Like,
too
it's
good
way
and this
better.
person needs to be stopped.
I'm just gonna be honest. This is just better than most films. It's just it's just
I mean,
really
yeah,
good. It's just
it's just great.
I mean, it's I mean, yeah, I think it's one of the best films of all time. I really can't like every scene is great. I one bit that really did make me think of Invasion of the Body Snatchers is where there's the Paul Giamatti looking one, and he's outside, and he does like an almost Donald Sutherland type like,
Oh, yeah, where you just yeah, yeah.
and I was just like,
Oh, yeah,
man, that
that
really
kind
is,
of roar that they have the thing do every
yeah,
now and again, that's a great
yeah.
bit of sound design.
Oh, it's fantastic. Yeah, the sound design. I mean, it's great because it's so I don't
Just
always often pick up on
otherworldly.
the sound design in films, in the sense of like it's very rare that I'm like, "Oh, that was amazing sound design." Like, there aren't many films where I can really be like, "That's an amazing element." But this film is just yeah, I mean, the sounds that the creature, the thing makes, it's like, "Oh, this is good."
It's just yeah, it's otherworldly, it's excellent.
Yeah, yeah, it's a great film. I mean, do you want to talk about the ending now, or do you want to talk about some other parts of the film first?
I'm happy to talk about the ending, I think we've kind of covered most of the other stuff.
Yeah. So ambiguous endings to me, 9 times out of 10,
Crap.
scream of
We
laziness.
couldn't think of anything.
So we just said, "Fuck it, we're gonna end it." I remember you were talking at uni. You had to. There was like 40 films that were being pitched, and like most of them had an ambiguous ending.
I'd say about 80% of them, they had an ambiguous ending. And then when the lecturers were like, "Oh, so, what do you imagine, the ending is?" And they're like, "Oh, no, well, it's ambiguous. No, you're not meant to know." I'm like, "Yeah, but that's the, like, maker. You should know. That's not an ambiguous
Yeah, you
ending.
should
That's just
know. Yeah,
you just couldn't think of anything."
yeah. It's one of the
'Cause I
worst screen.
if you give your film an ambiguous ending and you don't know what the ending's meant to actually
Yeah,
be, then you've just wasted my time.
yeah. It's like one of the
Why
three
should I
types of
give a
endings
fuck about your movie?
yeah. I mean, it's the Brian Cox. It's like, why the fuck should I care about your fucking movie? Why should I 2 fucking hours in your fucking movie? I haven't got any use for it. Any bloody use for it.
Right.
But no, it is true though. It's like it's one of the three worst types of endings you could give a film, along with it was all a dream and your character kills themselves at the end or was dead the entire time. Like that's one of the like those are like the three worst types. Not to say there aren't good examples of those. There are good examples of those types of
Off-bad
endings.
ending will fall into one of those categories.
Shutter Island, okay? Shutter Island is one of those things where it's like the ending is like Shutter Island is quite good for a lot of it, and then it's like, oh wait, none of that was real. And it's like, what was the point then? And it's so obvious in Shutter Island 2, which is the problem. It's like, oh,
Yeah.
this seems a bit too obvious. So it's got to be a red herring, right? Like, there's no way. It's
About
too
10 minutes
obvious.
in, I thought, right, okay, probably this.
Yeah, and it's but then you sort of convince yourself like, but that seems way too obvious. So it's not going to be that. Then it's still going to be real. And then it's like, oh no, it was. I was right. In terms of sort of ambiguous endings that I think work, I think Inception works. And even then, it's not. See, I think ambiguous.
Ending of Inception, it doesn't matter if he's in a dream or not because the character's happy.
Yeah, that's the thing, right? It's kind of ambiguous, like whether it falls over or not. But also, it doesn't matter really. It's kind of it gives you an option of being like, yeah, it's like the Plague Dogs is an arguably an ambiguous ending.
Great ending from 1982.
From my memory, Whiplash is kind of ambiguous, but not like
not in the way you think.
Well, not. No, it's sort of it because it's sort of like you can. There's a lot to take from that ending of like you can take a lot from the ending of Whiplash. Of like, well, I think from my memory it is kind of ambiguous, but not in the same way that like other ambiguous endings are. I mean, but the thing, it has an ambiguous ending in the sense of like, well, who are either of them the thing? And it's like,
either of them could be.
It doesn't really matter. Like, it doesn't matter if one of them is the thing or not. Like, it's kind of like, well, they're both gonna die. And I think it works as an ending because it is ambiguous to a degree, but it's not a cop-out ending.
It gives you something to talk about because the whole film is characters saying, "Oh, are you the thing?" and stuff, and then you leave the film going. So was one of them the thing?
Yeah,
you can kind of get along at home.
Yeah, that's how you do an ambiguous ending. It leaves you like it gives you a conversation to have, but it doesn't just end. But it gives you something to talk about, and that's how you do ambiguity of like there is something to talk about and to think about and to analyze of like, well, it allows for interpretations, but it never it's not a cop out.
That's a problem with a lot of quote ambiguous endings. It just kind of ends and it doesn't give you anything. Whereas here, you've got options.
Yeah, and I think that's the thing too. It's I am fine with ambiguous endings. But yeah, the ending, it's great. I really love it. I mean, I love this film, man. I mean, is there anything final you want to say, or do you want to put a rating on it?
I'm happy to wrap it up here. Yeah, I guess I'll go first. Yeah, this is one of my favorite films of all time. It has been pretty much since the first time I watched it. As I've watched it more and more over the years, I've just grown to love it more and more. No surprises. I'm giving this a 10 out of 10.
So this film was in my top 100 favorite films of all time. Prior to rewatching it, it was 74th in my top 100, so pretty respectable. I give the thing a 10 out of 10. It's I mean, it's the thing. It's one of the most iconic films of all time for a reason. Yeah, The Thing, 1982 classic, one of the best films of all time. Doesn't need a continuation, but they did make a continuation called The Thing, which
well, I guess it's technically a continuation, even though it's things that
it is
before.
Technically a continuation, but it's set place before. Why do so many studios find it difficult to name their films?
And they just rename it after the original one. I'm trying to think what else you could call this film.
Yeah, that's the problem. What else can you call this film? It's not
Another
like
thing.
But yeah, The Thing 2011 is it's a prequel, which I'm not against prequels. Although there was a certain point where I was kind of like, okay, I do know that these characters they're not gonna win because I know what happens. It's like but yeah, in general, I'm not against prequels being made for anything really. Like I think there are stories to tell with prequels. You have to do it right. And okay, I'm gonna sound a bit more negative on this film, and don't get me wrong, I don't dislike this film. I think this is a decent film. I don't think it has a reason to exist.
No,
Like I want to say
that's
that.
that's its
Um,
biggest gripe,
and
irrelevance.
and and in my personal opinion, most of the time I do kind of get that with films where I'm like, why is this exist? Why is this being made? So that's sort of the biggest issue I have with this film is it's just like I don't see a necessity for it to exist.
No.
But from my understanding, it wasn't like a massively well regarded. I don't know what the like. I'm just looking
No.
at the film. It wasn't like a. It's got a 34% on Rotten Tomatoes, which I think that's a bit harsh. But I don't really like it. Yeah, it doesn't need to exist. But I didn't. I liked it relatively so. I watched it before I watched the original thing because I just had to make sure like that I had seen the other versions of the thing first
I
before
actually,
I
yeah, you hadn't seen
watched.
this one before.
No, I hadn't seen this one or the thing from another one before. So I prioritized this ones because I'm like I haven't seen them, so I should see them. Um, yeah, I mean to talk about the cast, um, got Mary Elizabeth Winstead as the
Tag
lead, a woman as the
a
protagonist.
woman.
Which I like Mary Elizabeth Winstead quite a bit. Actually, I think she's
I
a
do, yeah.
really
I've got a fondness for her.
um yeah. Her, I mean, I thought she was fantastic in Fargo. It's good. I think I really I like Mary Elizabeth Winstead a lot. I think there is just a real likability that she brings that it's like,
Yeah, I think so.
and I think it works. You've also got Joel Edgerton, who like I know the name, I just cannot tell you
He's
where I've
always just
seen.
in stuff.
Yeah, I'm looking at his Wikipedia page
Like,
because
the
I've
the
definitely
thing that
seen
comes
him.
to mind is that when you say Joel Edgerton, I think of him in, The Great Gatsby. I think he plays Tom
Mm.
Buchanan in that.
He's in a couple of the Star Wars prequels as Luke's uncle.
What? Oh, yeah, he's his uncle. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
He is the uncle. He's in Legend of the Guardians: The Owls of Ga'Hoole as Metalbeak. God,
Oh my
what a
god.
shit name. He's in Zero
Yeah.
Dark 30, which that actually makes sense. I don't know why Zero Dark 30 just screams like a. He just seems like he would be like a supporting part
Well, yeah,
in one of
Joel
the.
Edgerton's never been anything but a kind of nothingy, just dude. He's just in
Yeah,
stuff.
but the thing, yeah.
Anyway,
So it's a
I
prequel.
think the cast in general are doing decent enough work here.
Yeah, they're not amazing actors like in terms of like what they're being asked to do, but like we said earlier, the 1982 film isn't exactly asking a lot from those actors either, so it's like, whatever.
I think
Okay,
everyone's still doing solid work.
they're doing good work, but it's not like these aren't like all timer
Oh
performances.
yeah,
One thing I want to talk about that I really don't like is the effects. So they used, from my understanding, they use like practical effects, right? Like I'm
yeah.
not.
When they're on set, yeah, I believe so. And then they just kind of basically covered it up with CGI.
Yeah, and the CGI. Oh boy.
Not the best, is it?
No. Well, I'm just looking here at the film at on the film's Wikipedia page. Show this the studio mandated they do reshoots. So the film was meant to come out in April, but it was changed to October so they could do some reshooting, which that's never a good sign when you have to
No.
do last minute reshoots. That's real bad. So that the intention of the reshoots was to enhance existing sequences or to make crystal clear a few story beats or to add punctuation marks to the film's feeling of dread. Oh, that doesn't sound good. That's really not good.
Yeah, that's bollocks.
It's like, first of all, why is studio so bad at figuring this out? Like, surely you've seen the script, right? Like, if you're not happy with this, like, if you're like, surely you'd understand this when you read the script, right? Like, maybe I just don't understand. No, studios don't know what the fuck they're doing sometimes. But it's like, you should surely figure this out before you start shooting.
You'd
Like,
think.
just like I see stuff from James Gunn. He's always posting on Twitter or Threads, and he was always like, "Yeah, I don't do reshoots. I shoot everything I need, and then we don't have to ever do reshoots because I've shot everything. I know what the fuck I'm doing." And I'm like, "Why is that just not standard practice in the industry? Like, it doesn't make any
You'd
sense to me. Like,
What a novel
why is that?
idea.
that James Gunn knows what he's doing, and he films everything. It's like, yeah, we don't need reshoots. I'm gonna get everything I need now, so we can, we have like a year of post
We film
production.
it when we need to film it.
Yeah, exactly. And now there's like his upcoming Superman film. They've got like a year of post production. Like they've been working on it for like 3 months already. It's like good. That's what the fucking industry should be doing instead of killing the CG artists. They're like, okay, you've got 3 months to do this. Do it. But yeah, so they apparently did some test screenings, which test screenings are good generally. Well, sometimes test screenings are good.
Sometimes.
Not when they ruin films, not when they like Army of Darkness and Little Shop of Horrors, which just ruined those films.
Mm.
But yeah, the test reactions were not positive. Sorry, what? I'm just reading this. So, in response to the negative test screenings, many scenes involving character development were either cut from the film or reshot to be shortened. That seems like the opposite of what you should be doing. As the studio disliked the slow boil pace of the film. What? That's literally what that's what the film should
Oh,
be.
oh,
It should be a slow, like.
well, I'd say this one gets going quite quickly.
Yeah, I mean, I guess that's because of the studio mandates, which I think is a bit of a
Yeah.
problem. I think what makes I mean, we talked about it, but like we don't really see the thing until a good. Is it like half hour in? Like how late into the film is the
Something like
dog?
that, yeah.
And that's
Yeah, the
good
dog
because it
scene.
builds on
Yeah.
the dread. Because you sort of like you still questioning like why are they trying to shoot that dog? Whereas this film, it kind of
Yeah, and
just goes
this
for it.
one,
It's like
I don't dislike that. I quite like that he gets into doing stuff fairly quickly, but it also just kind of feels like it comes out of nowhere.
Another concern was that the use of practical effects made the film look too much, in quotations, like an 80s film. So this is when they covered all the practical effects with CGI, which is a monumentally terrible
Stupid
decision.
idea.
It's like practical effects have been like Alien Romulus. I know you haven't seen it yet, but it's a lot of practical stuff in that film. Like they use like practical face huggers, and I
Hmm.
think the xenomorph is like a practical thing. So it's like practical effects still work. Just studios don't know what the fuck they're doing sometimes. And then there's that bit where there's a bunch of them in the helicopter and his face sort of like splits open when they're in like the
Yeah,
helicopter.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah, it's I look, yeah, I don't want to blame. I mean, this is the studio's fault. It's the studio's fault. I'm not going to blame like most of the people making this because it's like, well, they were told to by the studio head, so it's like you can't um, fault them really.
Yeah, you can't really blame them.
But I think there's a lot of this stuff. I mean, I do just like, yeah. I mean, it's not as scary or as
No,
tense
it's not quite as
or
atmospheric.
engaging. Yeah,
Um,
but it's not a bad
but
film either. I didn't
yeah, I
hate
do
the
like
experience
the
of it.
film. I think they do some good stuff to make it feel different from the 1982 film in terms of how the characters kind of try and figure out the situation with the thing, like the
Mm.
looking at their fillings to see if
I thought that was a
yeah,
really nice idea. I'm like, okay, it's sort of a play. It's sort of like a play on the blood testing scene, but it's like it's different. So it's not. It's like it's the same idea, but it's not the same thing. And it's like, okay, cool. I really like that
yeah, it's a
of them
different
being like,
solution to the problem. But then again, I
yeah,
like that it doesn't immediately, it's not an immediate solve because some of them have um, different type of filling, or some don't have fillings anyway,
yeah,
so you can't prove them.
yeah, exactly. And I'm like, that's really good. Like that scene, I thought that scene, I sort of sat up and was like, okay, I'm liking this. Yeah, I mean, on the whole, it's not. Yeah, it's not a
I think they
terrible
do
film
some
by
pretty
any.
nice stuff with, there's the guys that survive the plane, the helicopter crash. So
Mm,
they're all very immediately like, okay, we can't really trust you because we don't know where
yeah,
you've been.
I think on the whole, this film it gets a bit of a bad rap, and to a degree, I understand because it's like this is a prequel to one of the most iconic and beloved films of all time.
Yes.
But like, again, I don't really see myself wanting to revisit it.
I think I
Um,
probably will at some point because I do quite
at
like
some point, I might
doing
do,
them as a double bill.
but
I don't mind that. That's what I did
Yeah,
yesterday.
yeah. But I definitely think it's it's by no means
It's
a bad
obviously
film.
much less good than the original.
Yeah, it's obviously not as good, but like it was always going to be not as good. Like a 10 out of 10 is 10
Pretty
out of
hard
10 is a
to beat
perfect fucking film. But yeah, I just think this it's worth watching if you're a fan of The Thing. I do think it is a worth watching
that. Mm.
if you're a fan of The Thing. Because I think there's some good
I
scenes in
think,
it.
yeah, I'd say I'm not that big a fan of the bit where they, on the ship, alien ship at the end. I'm not. I think that goes a bit too big, but I do like the very
Mm,
ending of the film where it links back into the first film. I like that.
yeah, I thought no, I like there's lots of stuff conceptually. I'm like I do like this, and there are some scenes that I mean again the teeth, um yeah, sort of opening the teeth checking. I thought like yep that's good.
Checking for fillings. Yeah.
Fillings, yep that's good.
It just doesn't
But
quite
yeah
operate on the same level as the
yeah
original.
yeah I give the 2011 thing a 7. I think that's fair.
Yeah, I got it at a 7.
It's worth watching. I think it's not a bad film. Like you're not gonna be like, oh, why am I fucking watching this? Like it is a good film. It's not like I'd recommend it. Like watch this film. Like it's not like a film where I'm like
It'd be like, yeah,
I
you can check
would
it
be
out.
like,
Mm.
yeah, no, I'd recommend it if you like the thing. That's the context where I'd recommend it. Be like,
Mm.
oh, you're a fan of the thing, then go watch this film. But if you're not a fan of the thing, which first of all, fucking sort your fucking life out if you're not a fan of the thing.
Yeah,
Like my
absolutely.
god. But like if you're not a fan of the thing, then I don't really see a need to watch it if you're not
Yeah,
a
it's okay
fan of the thing.
watching it. That's where I'm coming from too.
Yeah, and so yeah, that's this year's Halloween special done and dusted.
What
I
time it's
hope
been.
you have enjoyed this week's episode. I hope you've enjoyed. There's a massive back catalog of episodes, like like getting close to 200 episodes. So I don't know when episode 200 is. I'll have to figure out what episode number that will be, or like what the date is, because we'll have to do a special thing for episode 200. But yeah, I hope you have enjoyed this week's episode, and I will see you all in the next one. Goodbye.